evening, folks. All right, we are back in the studio tonight for episode 2 of A Journey in Boots from Trauma to Triumph. I said it right this week. That's awesome. With the amazing Dr. Jay Royster, all the way from Florida. And of course, I'm here in lovely Windsor, Ontario. But more importantly, our guest tonight is Bill Hayes, all the way from New York. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hi, ladies. How are you?
Oh, we're doing wonderful. Like, I'm medicated. I don't know about Dr. J. This is out of the 3 shows I have this week. This is the first time I've appeared all week. So, with a bad eye and everything. So, but that's okay because
You're here now. That's what
I'm here now. I'm gracing everybody's presence today.
So, Mr. William Hayes, aka Bill Hayes, I met him through a friend of ours. I did that television show Operation Healing Heroes, and he did it before me. I was introduced, Jay Garstecki introduced us, and kind of been talking ever since. And he came down to Florida not too long ago, and he presented in his uniform, received some awards. He's been doing some amazing things since he retired, but he's a Navy vet, police officer for New York City, and a New York City firefighter. And we just want to know where you were, where you are, and where you're going, because you're doing big things over there in NYC. So we want to hear about it.
And an Air Force vet.
Oh, see?
Yeah. So
Air Force vet. Oh,
I was in 2 branches. Yeah, I did so.
How did you do that? Let's begin there.
Back to 1980, senior year in high school. The plan when I was a freshman in high school was to go on and be a football player in Notre Dame. But at a 6-foot freshman at 150 pounds, became a a 6-foot senior at 180 something pounds. That plan wasn't going to work out. So I went to the recruiter. I enlisted in the my senior year of high school, April. I did the delayed entry program to the United States Navy. Graduated in June, and then September I was on an airplane, the first airplane I ever set foot on in my life, and I was in boot camp.
This is for the Navy, right?
Yep, went into the Navy, went to Great Lakes, Illinois for boot camp. Then from there I went on to Memphis, Tennessee for training, and then found myself in San Diego in a Navy squadron, S3s, which were so we're back in the Cold War days, and they were sub chasers. We were watching the Russians, which,
wow.
if you think about it, are coming full circle.
And then you switched to the Air Force?
Yeah, I did my active duty, and then when I came home, I stayed right in the reserves. I was drilling out of Pennsylvania, and then unfortunately, I had a child pass away. My firstborn, my son, died at childbirth, stillborn, and I was gonna have to get out to try and take care of my family and still be in the reserves. It wasn't working, and then I found an Air National Guard base that was less than an hour from my house. And I switched branches. One weekend I was wearing dungarees in the Navy, and the next weekend I was wearing a camouflage uniform and had no idea what the stripes were, the ranks were, but I figured it out.
You went from dungarees to BDUs. Well,
Yep.
You did get smart. I'm just saying.
There you
I have
go.
a love for the Air Force, so yeah.
Yeah, I'll always be a sailor at heart. But yeah, it was a good move, and then I switched over to the Air Guard, and I did another 21 years in the Air Force, or the Air Guard total. So I retired with 32 years total service in the military.
Wow. But you were reserve. So what was your day job?
Well, I mean, again, I was prior active duty, but then when I came home, I had taken the test for the New York City Fire Department while I was still on active duty Navy. My father was a firefighter. My father was actually an Army vet, career. He was a New York City firefighter. Started out in 1960, what New York City refers to as the war years, all through the 60s into the 70s. So I took the test, and while I was waiting to get hired, I took the NYPD test, and I was a New York City police officer for just under 2 years, and then I became a firefighter.
So you were a police officer kind of waiting for the fire department to open up?
Yeah, what it is I mean, NYPD at the time, their manpower was like 35,000, where the fire department is 10. So they don't hire as much as quick. And unfortunately, civil service exams, there's usually some kind of a lawsuit or something involved with it. So it was a backup plan. I mean, but I also took it with knowing that might have been a career also. But yeah, I was a police officer in 1986. I went on in January of 86, and then I became a firefighter in July of 87.
You are the definition, sir, of a life in service. You do know that, right?
Or I just don't know what I want to be when I grow up, trying to figure it out.
I think it's more of dedicating a life of service. Scott would like to know what you did in the USAF.
In the Navy?
In the Air Force.
Well, both in the Navy and the Air Force, I was in aviation. So I was aviation electronics. I maintained the aircraft. And like anything in the military, as my rank grew, my responsibility grew. So I started from, the young, brand new airman on the flight deck, moving the aircraft, maintaining them, to retired as an E8 in the 9 steps in the enlisted rank, to I was running the safety programs for the base in the Air Force at the end of my career.
So serving in the military and then serving your community, what were the big differences for you?
A lot of it actually were more similarities than differences. I mean, rank structure, organization. I guess, again, looking back, I did thrive in those kind of environments. I like order. I like rank. I like, structure. Difference, military, they tell you to do it, you do it, no questions asked. Being in the civilian world and then being a police officer or a firefighter, you tell somebody to do something, they're not necessarily going to do it right away. You may have to encourage them a little more.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, a little different.
I just have a visualization.
Especially today, being a police officer today is very, very difficult in the country. I mean, it's, yeah, it's, no, it was great. I definitely enjoyed my time as a police officer. Each step was a growing process and just life. And now I'm retired. Can't believe it. In May, I'll be retired 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I retired in 2011, but I had altogether, again, over 30 years between my fire and police time, and then I had over 30 years in the military. So a couple of friends of mine laughed at me when I was 49 years old, and I had over 60 years of work in 49 years.
Wow.
If you combine the two.
So when you took that call, or you got accepted as a firefighter, like, walk us through that, because it sounds like that was your dream all along. And then
it turned into that. Again, I said, as a young man, I always tried to look ahead. When I dedicated myself to the fire, yes, this is what I want to do. I saw growing up, again, my father was a firefighter. We had a good life. Always, we weren't rich, but we were never poor. We always had a roof over our head and clean clothes. And my father didn't talk a lot about the day-to-day of being a fireman, especially again during that time frame. You look back now, you can go on YouTube or you can read some books. There's a great book called Report from Engine Company 82, which is one of the places my dad worked. It was the busiest fire company in the world at the time. And it was pretty hairy. And again, that's one of the things when you do become a police officer or a firefighter, you don't come home telling your family war stories. It's you just don't. You know what you do. You're proud of what you do. So that was one of the attractions. My younger brother was more of the. He used to go to the firehouse more than me and hang out there with my dad or sleep over. And but no, I just I was always proud of what he did, and I saw that I could have a good life growing up. But all right, what else you want?
What would you say was your favorite out of every place that you've served in every capacity? What would you say was your favorite?
Um, again, equal in all. I mean, I took away good from all. I met some really good people, in that journey. If you want to go, as a young man, I would never think I'd be, 18, 19 years old on an aircraft carrier going around the world, seeing places, I'm 19 years old and I'm in Japan or Singapore or Australia. Again, like I said, I'd never even been on an airplane before I stepped foot in the Navy. Now I'm working on them, and then I'm on all these places that you only read about in books. Police again was crazy time in the late mid '80s. Crack wars were really bad. I worked in some the places I worked with some busy places, so that was definitely a learning experience. And then I loved every day I was a firefighter. I worked at some when I first got on the department. I was only 24. I just like turned 24 years old. The senior men that I worked with were all from the 60s. So they were great, wealth of knowledge. These are the guys, they were, a lot of them were my father's age. And I was just a kid. So I learned from some really great people. And then I worked in two firehouses. When you go in the fire department, you get assigned to a company out of the fire academy, and then you could do your entire career there. And the way you can transfer, you put in for transfers, or if you get promoted, you move around. So I transferred to another firehouse, which again I worked there for. I was in my first house for 7 years, my second house for just a little over 14 years, and a lot of those people I worked with in both houses are just lifelong friends that I'm still in touch with.
Was the second company in the second house you worked at, was that right around the corner from the towers?
No. My first firehouse was on. I worked my whole career in Manhattan, the borough of Manhattan. My first firehouse was Ladder Company 16. I was on 67th Street on the east side.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, that's kind of the neighborhood my mother grew up in. My grandparents were Irish immigrants, came to the States, and that was a kind of a Irish community at the time, and so it was ironic going there for my first firehouse, and then my second firehouse. I actually went further up north in the island, which is the busier part of Manhattan, up on the George Washington Bridge, Ladder 45, great firehouse up there. And but yeah, when I was in 16, I actually responded to the first World Trade Center bombing. I was there the second day. Ladder 45, I was on duty for 9/11. So I get I don't want to say it's an honor, but I had the distinction of responding to both World Trade Center bombings.
I know that when we went through the museum, we walked through and there were 5 of us, and you were kind of showing us each picture and what they meant and what was happening in the background. And then by the time you were done walking around, because that was the first time you'd ever been there, I think we had about 30 people listening to you.
Yeah, well, I had been there once before,
Okay.
or even a couple times. The first time I ever went down there after it was built, I actually went down with my daughter. I have one child, my daughter. She was only 9 when 9/11 happened. So again, going back to you don't go home and tell horror stories to a 9-year-old, because she was taken out of school that day, and then she told me later on how one of her classmates said, your father may have died. So, but I didn't even before that. I don't tell war stories, but yeah, when they opened it up, and now she's in her 20s, and I took her down there, and it was tough. It was I was a puddle, but it's something I needed to do, and I think it was good for her. Puts it into context. But like you're saying, the times I have go down there, it's usually with either other firefighters or military. It's to me, it's very much needed. And when I look at museums, which I do very much enjoy museums, I enjoy history, but more to be educated or entertained. To me, obviously, I'm going to look at that much differently with a different set of eyes. And like you said, I've had it more than one occasion. I'll turn around and there's just a group of people starts following. And, but I understand it too. I mean,
Well, I mean, anytime you have like we go into museums all the time. So, I lived in Virginia for a while. There's a lot of museums in DC, and you walk around and you're looking at history. So
yeah, no, and I understand
what
that.
it's like to be with someone who can share what's on the museum walls. I mean, that is pretty. I was in awe.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, and I don't take that lightly. I mean, I'm not a I me guy. I just happen to be one of a lot of people that have been there, so I had firsthand experience. I mean, I could point to something and say, this is, that's one of the fire trucks that was down there, or I knew a couple of guys that worked in this company, or I knew a couple of guys that worked in that company. When you see a picture, or things that I remember, being there firsthand. So that's the kind of stuff and again, with other firefighters or military that are going down there, and I know that, they're going down there out of respect, so I could get a little more, I can give them a firsthand knowledge of what we saw.
It's a very unique experience, that's for sure, because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, and it's still, it always puts a lump in my throat when I go down there. It's just, I mean, from where I live, where I'm sitting right now, when during the week of 9/11, when they light the two beams, I can, on a clear day, I can see it from my front lawn. So, I mean, that's where I live.
I can't imagine. We actually went to Ground Zero when we were there in August, and I could just feel the presence of people there. So I can't imagine what it'd be like for somebody like you who actually was there working, at that time. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go into the museum. But next time I go to New York, well, I'll have to look Bill up, and
Yeah.
we'll
Oh,
take Bill.
it's very much worth it. They did a tremendous job. Took a little bit long, again, and unfortunately, like anything in life, it got a little politicized. They didn't know how they were going to display it, how they were going to acknowledge the names and all. But I think they did it right.
For sure. It looked beautiful anyways. Well, about as beautiful as a monument, I guess, could be. Not to disrespect to anybody that was lost and things like that. But yeah, it was not what I expected. That's for sure. Not that I'd seen it prior to, but it was definitely something that everybody needs to experience to even, have an inkling of, what happened there and at that time. And something I'll never forget anyways. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And like I said, I'm not a big me guy, even though like I'm in the room I'm in it's a small bedroom in my house that I made into my office. I mean, I'm not I don't have I'm not an office guy, but this is the only place I can hang up all my junk I've collected over the span of my life. So this is the anybody that's been in the military, there's a phrase they call it the "I love me room," or So this is my "I love me room." When I need to come in and tell myself how great I am, I can come in here and look at all my junk on the wall. Yeah,
your medals and all of that.
The service, though.
I got medals and coins and axes on the wall and baseball bats and hockey sticks. And,
I do agree with you. I think everybody should at least visit Ground Zero at least once, and just the ultimate respect I have for the individuals who work day and night. And Bill is one of those people, that he tried to recover as much as he possibly could. And like, the dude's a hero, and he does not want me to say that, but it's true.
Nah. Heroes are the ones we lost. I mean, we're still dealing with that. So the New York City Fire Department lost 343 members that day,
Wow.
out of the almost 3,000 in total. New York City Police was 23. Port Authority Police was 37. We were 343 out of the uniform. We have exceeded that now post 9/11, and it's still going on. Guys and gals are getting sick from the exposure, and hopefully that ends. But I think it's just going to be there because nobody knows. It was people say, "What were you exposed to?" Nobody knows. The doctors have all their estimates, or the scientists, but we just know it's not good for you, and a lot of people are getting sick. But yeah, so that's all. That should be all my junk. There you go, all over the place.
Not junk.
It's not.
That is 30
in that room.
3 years. That's
It's
right.
stuff. It's a lot of stuff.
It's 60 years, man. You earned everything in that room.
That's right.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We got to work on getting a light behind him so that you can see everything.
Yeah, I have the lights up there above the two helmets, but it would be shining right directly into the camera.
It's super bright.
I'm not. I said this is my first podcast, so I'm not podcast ready.
You're doing a phenomenal job, sir. And we, as most veterans, they don't like talking about themselves, but we appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story. I have to ask, so you're 2 years into retirement. So what would you say it's been like to enter the civilian world for you?
Well, for me personally, it was a difficult adjustment because I got sick. So again, I had a back injury that wound up needing surgery. So again, my plan was have surgery, heal up, and then I was hoping to get into more of the training aspect of the fire service. I was hoping to go out to our fire academy and maybe teach out there for a couple of years. And again, I had come full circle where now I was the older guy with the newer guys, firefighters coming on and hopefully give back a little bit. But then I was diagnosed with cancer from the World Trade Center. It was operable, so I had surgery, but then that was it. I was out. So that's tough, But I had a nice long career, so that kind of eased it. But definitely an adjustment. The first 6 months or so, you feel like you're either on vacation or you're on the medical leaves that I was on with the illness and injury, and then you have to you got to adjust. Then I got involved in a number of veteran nonprofit groups, and also I still work with the veterans on the fire department, and but even that's an adjustment because I dove into it head first, and you can over volunteer because it becomes almost now it's like work.
Right.
And I jokingly always say, like, when I get a phone call, "Hey, Bill, you're a great guy. We need this." I'm like, "Oh man, I'm getting, they're gonna give it to me here," and I still do. Like even today, I was working an issue for a couple hours today, trying to help out another firefighter with getting some benefits he's entitled to.
Right. I totally get you about over volunteering, because as people that work from service, it's like, oh well, Dorothy will do it or Bill will do it, right? Because they know how much we love serving people. However, you're right. You gotta have that balance, and finding that balance is key. And so, what has it been like for your family though to have you home? Because I am sure that's been a transition too.
Yeah, it has. Unfortunately, I went through a divorce right around the same time I was retiring, so that was thrown on top.
Oh, wow.
But I said I have one daughter. She's great. She's a middle school special ed teacher and a high school soccer coach. I'm very proud of her. So it gives me the ability to be very involved in her life. Again, I never missed a game until 9/11. Then when she was either playing or when I was deployed to Afghanistan. And now even as a coach, I go to all her games. Um, she just bought a house a little over a year ago. So, my daughter got the house, daddy got the toolbox at her house. So I can help out with that. And, but no, that's good. And try to try new things that I really didn't used to do. My big um, non-work activity for myself was I played hockey. I was always, like you said, since a child, I was sports. And then I got, as I got older, I was playing a lot of, softball, hockey. I did everything. I played football, baseball. But I played hockey with the fire department. We have leagues. I mean, we have 10,000 members, a lot of good athletes who played in the leagues. But a couple back injuries, my hockey days are over. So I started fly fishing, which I had never done. I don't eat fish. It was funny. It was introduced to me through the VA. A gentleman came in and said, anybody interested in fly fishing? And I stuck my hand in the air, but I said, I don't eat fish. And he's like, that's okay. It's catch and release. So I do that. And then I started hunting. I never hunted. I liked camping, hiking when I was a kid. I always liked the outdoors, but I was never a hunter. My family's all originally from the city. My mother, my father, my aunts and uncles were all city kids. My generation was the first generation to grow up in the suburbs, so that wasn't anything we did. And I play golf. Again, I never touched a golf club in my life, and now a lot of retired firemen play golf. And unfortunately, good or bad, there's never a lack of outings. It's usually around some cause of some sort, or, raising money for somebody. So yeah, go out when the weather's warm. It hasn't still pretty cold here, but when the weather warms up, I get out and I play golf a couple times a week.
Well, sir, August 3rd, mark it on your calendar, and come on down to Canada for my third annual Don Gray Memorial Golf Classic in honor of my dad who passed away of cancer. So we would love to have you come on down and
Canada
golf.
for me is up. So it's not.
Okay, well, whatever.
I'm down. Canada's up, and I will not remember, but if you send me the invitation, I would love to come.
I'll send you a personal invitation. How's that?
Where in Canada?
So the tournament itself is in Tilbury, Ontario. It's like a speck on the map. You blink 4 times and you're through the city. But it was the last place my dad golfed, so that's where we have it yearly.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I have a lot of friends.
We raise money for cancer patients.
Yeah, no, that's great.
It
Puts it together. I have a lot of friends, Canadian friends. I'm again with the hockey just connection. You can see up there between that's my police dress cap and my fire dress cap is my original street hockey plastic goalie mask when I was like 7 years old. And so I'm a big hockey guy. I love Canada. I used to go up to Montreal quite a bit. My ex-wife's family, her mother was born and raised in Montreal, so we used to go up there quite a bit. I really haven't got up to the Ontario side. I need to get up there. I keep saying I want to go. I also want to get up to the Hockey Hall of Fame up in Toronto.
It is a great place to go.
There you go.
A couple years ago.
Yeah, I've never been to Toronto. I got to get up there.
So, Bill, you're still working with the firefighters.
What is that?
I said you're still working with the firefighters.
Yeah, like I said, we have a Veterans of Foreign Wars, a VFW post, but it's not your conventional post like you see in your town. We hold our meetings at our fire academy, and our membership is comprised of all active or retired firefighters, and especially post 9/11. And because of 9/11, there's a huge amount of military veterans want to join fire service, and especially the New York City Fire Department. So we try to go anywhere from the applicant level to try and mentor them through the process. of getting hired. And then there's a huge amount of benefits that people incur, even down to, just navigating the VA system. So, you try to help. Again, the old military adage, you want to leave it better than when you found it. So that's what we're trying to do. So you have a great group of guys I work with. And,
Still serving.
Yeah, I guess it still is service. I mean, I don't get a paycheck for it. Sometimes I'm sitting there going, why am I doing this? What am I getting myself into? Like you were saying earlier, when that phone rings, like, oh, you're a great guy. I'm like, oh boy, here it comes.
Yeah.
I went from never holding a fly rod in my hand to, in like a year's time, I was in charge of the state of New Jersey for this nonprofit. And I'm like, what the heck happened to me here? Yeah. But I had to take a step back because it was too much. It was too much. I mean, I could do it, but again, there's that fine line between volunteering and voluntold. And when it became voluntold,
Yeah.
I need to take a break here.
Well, Bill is our guinea pig too. We send him to all kinds of different little clinics and organizations and nonprofit events, and just because he's a straight shooter, so he'll give us like, yeah, it's a good program, or no, you're not sending anybody here.
Well,
he's very good at that.
Yeah, I've done some things, and again, you try not to abuse the stuff, but there's a lot of stuff out there, and I've had some really good experiences, and I've had some not so good experiences, and that's just how I am. I mean, I call it as I see it. I try to, even I guess in a non-black and white world, I try to live in, it's good or it's bad. I try to lead my life that way.
I appreciate that he looks at it through the lens of someone who is really struggling, even though he's doing well and he's managing and he's maintaining, and I would say thriving, because he threw himself right back into service, and he takes care of a lot of people all the time.
I mean, I guess I'm unique. I mean, again, having the background of, I was active duty in two services, active duty Navy, and then I was in the reserves, and then I was in the Air National Guard, and then I was called back to active duty for 3 years from 2006 to 2009. During that time, not the whole time, I went to Afghanistan, and even prior to that, I had to do a lot of active duty when I switched branches, going through all the training and all the school. So I had the ability to look at things through both sets of eyes. That whole weekend warrior thing, well, that went out the window, 9/11. And, I have been a police officer, I have been a firefighter, so I can relate. So, it helps, when you're talking about something or even trying to look at something, at least when you have a working knowledge of it, you're not just running your mouth. I can speak from experience.
Bill really doesn't like it when you run your mouth and you don't know what you're talking about, especially somebody who served in 2 branches.
That is my favorite thing. I love people that know everything. But it is.
I like to put people in their place that know everything.
I try to do it with a smile on my face. We were having a meeting here recently at the New York City Fire Department headquarters, again, addressing some issues with military veterans. And one of the firefighters that works at headquarters, he was the facilitator, and he was very concerned about me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, you have a lot of, and he hesitated. He goes, you have a lot of energy. I'm like, I guess that was a nice way of, he was just afraid I was going to say something that was either deemed inappropriate or I was going to tell somebody to go to hell. So I didn't.
And you've done both.
Yeah. I mean, what are they going to do? Unretire me? I mean, bring me back and then fire me? I don't think they could do that. But, I'm respectful. I think I'm over respectful to people. But I do not have, I have no tolerance to BS. I just don't. I don't. My father, again, you're a product of your environment. My father was born in 1932 during the Depression. Again, Korean War vet, New York City firefighter. My father was you just you didn't look sideways. He didn't put his hands on us. Now my mother, the 5 foot nothing Irish woman, would knock you right on your on your back. But and then again, and well, also you add into the whole resume. I'm a product of parochial school, so I went to school with nuns and
Wow.
my age time there was no corporal punishment, but it was I say it was psychological warfare. I have the Irish guilt, so then you can see I got my Irish flag behind me there. That's part of my stuff here.
I love that. As somebody who's part Irish and Scottish, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. My daughter and I went over to Ireland 2 years ago now. Had a great trip. I went to all the places my family was from. She had been there a number of times. The first time I ever got to Ireland was on the way to Afghanistan. I never got out of the airport in Shannon, but this was the first real trip. And I mean, I grew up with, said, oh, my grandparents and all my cousins were all as Irish can, not, excuse me, without being born there. But yeah, I had a great trip. We found my great grandfather's grave in Ireland. It was pretty cool. But there's no family left there. Everybody that they either come to America or went elsewhere. They never went back. So there's nobody that we know of that's still over there. But we had a great trip. I gotta get back over.
Hmm. Love that. Love that.
So what else? What else you need to know? What other life's problems we can solve here? And,
I love the fact that you're a straight shooter, Bill. Like seriously.
Yeah, he loves
Yeah.
authenticity, and if you're superficial, boy, he will knock you down at least 7 pegs. I've seen him do it.
listen, I'm a pussycat. I worked for some tough guys. Like I said, I've never done a podcast. A friend of mine
Amazing.
had said, "Oh, you got to do this." There's this firefighter podcast that's out there. It's called "Getting Salty." If you're a salty firefighter, means you're an experienced, tough, weathered guy. The guys with the handlebar mustaches and all that stuff. So there's a couple guys that do one. They're from New York. I've watched a couple of their episodes on YouTube, but yeah, no, I laughed. I worked with some tremendous firemen that I learned from and worked with, and but yeah, I mean the firehouse kitchen is the therapy. You want to talk about therapy sessions?
You guys can cook. I've
Well,
been
it's not just cooking's good. Yeah, we can cook. Yeah, it's one of the only jobs. Like I said, you lose weight when you retire, but you. They always say all the world's problems can be solved in a New York City firehouse kitchen, but we'll probably create as many in the process. So,
I will tell you the firehouse that's right around the corner that's all decorated up around the corner from Ground Zero. There's an Irish pub.
right. Well, that's 10 and 10. 10 and 10. That firehouse was there. Was in the 10 and 10. The companies were in existence prior to the World Trade Center being built. That firehouse was moved there because our firehouses, and that's one of the things we joke. I have since 9/11, I have made and have some tremendous friendships with firefighters in different parts of the country. Yeah, the only fire department I knew was New York.
We know you get around. It's okay, Bill.
Nah, stop. The only place I knew was New York. But we call it, it's the old joke. We call them firehouses, where people call them fire stations. Like, not a fire station. You go to a gas. You could get gas or a train at a station. We have a firehouse. We live there. It's our family.
Right.
And our numbers are like 10 and 10 is together. There's only 2 firehouses in all of New York City that have the same. The engine and the ladder are the same. The numbers are different where we are. But yeah, 10 and 10 is right there, and then around the corner from 10 and 10 is O'Hara's Pub, and that was
Amazing food.
the outside was damaged significantly during 9/11. There's pictures of it, but it was one of the first places that opened up. But when it was open, it was still part of the zone, and so that's where all the firemen and cops and construction workers and volunteers would go in there, take a break. When it got back up and running again. So yeah, if anybody's ever down there, I highly recommend you go down there and see that.
They have amazing food. Like, it was the best burger I've ever had. You know, Dorothy, everywhere I
Well,
go.
that's the thing too. People that live outside of New York go like, hey, I'm coming to New York. Can you recommend a good pizza place? I'm like, yeah, okay.
Joe's Pizza. Hello.
Every pizza place. Right? I mean, but I would say go to a mom and pop. You don't want to go, and the joke is, well, where is there a good, there's a great pizza place right next to the great Irish pub. I mean, there's so many Irish pubs in New York City, But,
right.
Harris is a real good place.
It is really good food. Holy cow, I was blown away.
And you got to get a piece of New York cherry cheesecake while you're there too, folks. Yes. Because I bought one. We were at a diner. We stayed in New Jersey, but we traveled into the city every day. But at the TikTok diner, I think it was, the piece of cheesecake was literally this big. It was massive and amazing. I had it for 3 days.
Well, the things we'll always claim is, pizza or Italian food, bagels. That's always, you can't get a good piece of pizza or a good bagel anywhere outside of New York. Or even just a sandwich. I remember, again, visiting firefighters in California, and they go, yeah, we're going to go get a good sandwich. And they took me to Quiznos. I had never heard of a Quiznos. And I was like, this is dog food. I mean, nasty.
I will admit, Joe's Pizzeria in New York, it was really good. So
yeah, but it's just a regular corner pizza place, and then that's the difference too. You don't buy a pie. You get slices. You get 2 slices and a Coke.
Right.
I go outside of New York. I'm like, yeah, give me 2 slices, and their eyes start to cross. They're like, I'm like, I don't want to buy a whole pie. I just want a couple slices. But it's different. I mean, it's anything to get used to the food where you are. That's one of my excuses why I've never left the area. But I like the food.
Well, we'll have to get you off there.
He flies all over. He leaves the area. He just comes back.
Now I do. Yeah. I mean, when I was working, the only time I ever went anywhere was wearing a uniform, with the military and stuff like that. But, trying to. Winters, I try to do a little traveling because you get cabin fever here, depending on the amount of snow or just the cold. I mean, you can relate to that up in Canada. Last couple of years, we didn't have any snow. This year, we had some snow, but we still get the cold.
Definitely. Well, I'll have to go back to New York City, and next time I'm there, though, I'm definitely looking you up and Mr. Johnny Walker, because he was actually he was one of the guys at Ground Zero too. He was, I don't know, I think he was.
Bill knows him.
Oh yeah, Johnny Walker.
Did the documentary together.
Oh well, then there you go.
Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker.
Yeah, he was part of that documentary too.
Okay, I believe you.
I have pictures of you two.
I believe you. I don't know. What she was saying, Johnny Walker. I thought she was talking about a bottle of
alcohol. Yeah.
I thought she was talking about one of my best friends, Johnny Walker. I'm like, oh, okay.
He was a first responder down at 9/11 as well. His wife was one of the survivors. She ended up walking the Brooklyn Bridge, I think it was, to get away from.
He wasn't a first responder. He was a Marine.
Well, he was, yes, but he was also he
responded.
Whatever.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Okay,
they get fussy, man. You got to be specific.
I thought he told me he was also a first responder on top of being in the Navy. I'm sorry if I messed it up.
It gets.
It's okay.
That's always. I don't want to say touchy, but touchy because a lot of people want to.
They do. They get fussy.
A lot of people want to. Well, a lot of people want to claim that they've been there, and it's one of those things I'll never understand that. I mean, I guess it's you're not happy with your life, so you got to make up. That's like stolen valor. Anybody that ever talks about they never say that they were a mechanic or an aircraft electrician. They were all Navy SEALs or Green Berets or there I was surrounded on all sides. Like,
wait, I was supposed to ask you, since you were in the Navy, were you a SEAL? I was supposed to ask
and
you.
The joke is no. I mean, I can't balance a ball on my nose. No, I was not a SEAL. No, but actually, I do have a. So when I was in San Diego, I was at North Island, which is where the next adjoining base, literally you can run to it, is Imperial Beach. That's where Buds is. That's where the Navy SEALs train. That's where the whole, they go through their training. They're right down there. And I was a kid. I was always an athlete. When I was a kid in the Navy, I wasn't hanging out in bars. I was hanging out in the gym. I was a gym rat. And guy asked me to spot him lifting weights. He turned out to be a SEAL. And we became decent friends. And he was even encouraging me to try out. And he actually took me down to the beach one day and ran me through some stuff. And I did okay. But again, I never got to do that because I'll never forget. I actually had a conversation with a Navy Chief SEAL. Basically, it was like an interview, and I said, "Well, what happens if you fail? Do you go back to doing what you had been doing in the Navy?" And he said, "No, you go and I'll never forget." He goes, "You go into what's called the needs of the Navy," and I'm like, "What's that?" He goes, "Well, the Navy needs a lot of paint chippers, son," and I was like, "Nope, thank you," And
I don't think a lot of people know that either. Like when you fail,
and that may have changed now, but I believe it's still the same. Especially, and when I first went in, a lot of guys, and they didn't go directly to the SEALs right out of boot camp. They usually had some time under their belts in the service, and a SEAL was not a rating. It wasn't an AFSC, as they call it in the Air Force. But now it's a rating. It's a specific rating in the Navy. But yeah, I have a couple good friends that are SEALs. They're good guys.
Yeah, what's interesting is that I've acquired an enormous amount of. I've been pretty blessed to acquire a bunch of Navy clients, and I realized that there's a big difference between an MOS and a rating. It's like, what's their rate? And I'm like, I just told you what they do.
Well,
like,
rate is MOS.
Two different things.
Well, MOS is the Army and the Marine Corps' name. The Navy, it's rate, and the Air Force, it's AFSC. So it's your job, whatever your job specialty is. So in the Navy, I was what was called an AE, aviation electrician, and then in the Air Force, I was like a 01. The Air Force. That's one thing I found out when I went to the Air Force. The Air Force has acronyms for acronyms.
Yes.
They speak English. What the?
No, it's got to be broken down, man.
Yeah, the Navy uses a lot of slang, a lot of terminology that goes back to, sailing ships. The Air Force, well, now the Space Force being the youngest of the branches, but they have acronyms for acronyms. I was like, it looked like you took a box of Scrabble pieces and just threw them on the floor. I'm like, speak English. I don't know what the hell you're saying.
Crayons.
Yeah. Well, no.
Marines have crayons.
Crayons. Well, no, you don't. Army uses crayons. The Marines eat crayons. That's why you can't give Marines crayons. They'll eat them. But,
you just ask them what their favorite color crayon is, and they'll tell you.
Yeah, it's all good. And that's what's great, too. That's where the similarities, talk about the occupations, the good-natured, busting. You even see that, the firehouse, you see that between the engine and the ladder. Like I did my whole career, I was in a ladder company, or we refer to as a truck company. The engine and the truck, they give each other a hard time, and then then the cops and the firemen give each other a hard time,
and then you all give each other a hard time. I don't know of anybody that has served in any capacity that doesn't give each other a damn hard time. Trust me, I'm in a lot of veteran organizations, and you all bust each other's balls.
Oh yeah,
it's fun.
It is fun, and then I get
right in there with you. Feelings hurt about it. I've been called the chair force more times than I can count.
Well, I give you a funny story. So I did an Air Force, a veterans event.
Here we go.
Good buddy of mine that's an Air Force vet too, guy Bobby from Rhode Island. we're in the back of a bus going somewhere, and there's a couple people in front of us, Marines, telling war stories. And so Bobby and I start talking really loud, and they're talking about injuries or like battles they were in. And we were like, yeah, remember that one time when we were in Afghanistan? I go, I got a TBI really bad because they had the soft serve ice cream, and I ate it too fast, and I had a brain freeze. And these guys turn around and look at us like they got the hint. You know, they were like, no. Again, that was the.
I wonder what Dr. Joe would have to say about that.
Oh, we're gonna have him on, so I'm sure he'll share.
Yeah, but that, again, or
Mr. Navy Commander.
Right. He has lots to say.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know he does. He always has lots to say. He's been on my
like you
show
said,
3 times.
I never met a firefighter, a cop, or a veteran that uttered this phrase, "I don't know," because they know everything. They know everything. If they don't know it, they still know it. Yeah, they don't hesitate to tell you that they know everything. Yeah, I was at we have the Siller Foundation, the Stephen Siller Foundation, the Tunnel of Towers. Again, it's centralized here in New York. My group with the veterans with New York City Firemen were asked to attend their last gala. I'm a big gala guy. I go to a lot of galas. Like I said, I've been unfortunately, because of 9/11, I've been to a lot of really nice things, but because of a horrible day. Well, they say, oh yeah, it's black tie. I'm like, thank God I have uniforms I could put on. So we wear my Air Force uniform to this event. They asked us to put it on. We had a representative of each branch that are also firefighters. So I had, 32 years worth of, salad on my chest, and the guy started giving me a hard time. So I'm like, look, I will tell you about every single one of these, But yeah, we like to give each other a hard time.
And I love it, and that's why I love being part of, a part of this journey, and especially being an ally, because I give as good as I get, and trust me, they swing it at me quite regularly on our Friday calls.
Yeah, you can't be. Yeah, if you're thin-skinned, you never survive in any of the occupations.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, as crazy as it sounds, it is our therapy. I mean, you're going through a difficult time, and everybody's entitled to have their pity party, but that helped actually. Again, as crazy as it sounds, it helps you get out of it. I know it, and it definitely helped me when I was dealing with some stuff. But,
well, it's different when you've served, and then people come to you and talk to you, and you're like, yeah, I served too. It changes their perspective. It's like, oh, you wore the boots. Got it. And they just like open the floodgates.
Right. But it's a fine line too. You don't want to be that guy or that girl. Don't be that one. Don't be the in New York City, the expression is don't be a topper. And then we had an Irish guy in a firehouse. We used to call him Paddy McTopper. He topped everybody. No matter what you said. And then, again, the stories or the busting would purposely be so outrageous because I died 6 times. I said, well, you remember that time I almost died? Well, I actually died 6 times, and I came back from the dead 6 times. They just be outrageous and make it better than the last guy. I've been in firehouse kitchen and talking about a fire we had gone to recently, and the conversation about the fire, and the guys that were talking about it, they weren't even there. I was at the fire, and everything they said, not one thing was true. Flames were flying out all the windows, and babies were trapped over here, or whatever. I'm like, none of that happened. I was there. Like, what are we talking about?
It's just like the fishing story.
Right.
Not a fish. It was this big.
Well, that's the military. There I was, surrounded on all sides.
Right.
Every military or every fire or police story start off and end the same way. It starts off with, and again, I don't know. I'm trying to be clean. I don't know if this is PG or whatever.
You can say whatever you want to say, Bill.
Well, they all start off with true story, no bullshit. There I was.
Mm-hmm.
And then you fill in your little story, and then they all end with, by the grace of God, I'm here today to tell the story. That's it. Every one of them start and end the same way. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny. You got to give guys a hard time.
At least it's consistent.
Yeah, because then even like within our department, like so again, besides an engine and a ladder, we have multiple boroughs. So and then like Brooklyn, before the New York City Fire Department was actually incorporated, it was called like the Metro Fire Department, and then there was also the Brooklyn Fire Department because Brooklyn was a city of itself. So they still sometimes refer to it as the BFD, the Brooklyn Fire Department, or when they start telling stories, it's the borough of small buildings and tall stories. So we give them a hard time over there in Brooklyn, and they don't smile. They all have this like perpetual scowl. We call it the Brooklyn Puss. So anybody's watching this,
Sounds like a drink.
It does.
yeah. If anybody's watching this, they'll know what I mean, and they'll probably, or if they're from Brooklyn, they're probably making the Brooklyn Puss right now as we're speaking.
So, Bill, what is your hero story where you remember, an event in your career, all 18 of them, where you had an extreme situation where you didn't know what was going to happen, and then it turned out all right?
Well, I wouldn't call it a hero story. I mean, I remember as a very young firefighter, we had a fire in a sub-cellar basement. So all fire is dangerous, but when you start going down into basements. Like if you're trapped in a fire, and worst case scenario, you find a window. Hopefully, they get a ladder there or a rope, or again, depending on the size of the building, you could jump if you had to.
Right.
You start going down into basements. That's like going into a ship fire, which I've never been into a ship fire, just in training. But so I remember we were in a sub basement, so it was 2 levels below. That it was a high rise apartment building, and the basement area we were in was used for like storage. So it was all these cages. And so now, but in a fire situation, you can't see your hand in front of your face. So I was a very young firefighter, and we break into teams. It looks like controlled chaos, or it looks like chaos, but it is controlled. And again, when I first got on, it was still rubber boots and rubber coats, and not everybody had a radio. So part of the team I was on, the officer, and it was 2 firefighters with him together, were called the forcible entry team. So we're supposed to go to basically the front door, or what would be considered the front of the fire. We force entry, we search. So we were together, and the officer's the only one who had a radio. Well, we got separated in that basement, and we actually got stuck in one of those cages, and we had no radio communication. So if we had run out of air down there, who knows? But I remember that I was a very young firefighter when that happened. And our officer was a good guy, experienced firefighter, realized that we had been separated, and he found us. And because we started using our tools to try and break the lock. The lock was on the outside of the cage, and it locked us inside. And so he found us, and he opened up the door, and we got out of there. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Wow. You responded to the bombing in 93 too, right?
The 93, I went there. I got there the second day. So we went down. I was part of the search and rescue. Again, there was they lost 6 people that day, and we were just that was the sub. They parked the truck bomb in the parking garage. So I was down there, part of the group that was searching, looking for anybody that had survived. It was pretty well. That was like the most destructive thing I really ever seen before. I mean, it blew through. It blew through 2 floors below, went through the lobby, and did penetrate, I think, up into the first or the second floor above the lobby. But yeah, it was crazy. Cars all stacked on top of each other, concrete. There was a locker room down there for some of the workers in the building, and that's where they lost a couple of people there. But yeah, that was. I thought that was the craziest thing I had ever seen until 9/11 happened, and then. But yeah, and in all honesty, that's the only 2 times I had ever been to the World Trade Center in my life. I'd never been there as a tourist. I just, that's still so far down in the other end of the island. I have no family that lived down there, or I didn't really know anybody that worked down there. I had worked both my careers a firefighter or a police officer from either above the middle of the island of Manhattan to north. So yeah, no, that's the only 2 times I had ever been there.
And you went down there every day during 9/11, didn't you? Almost
I
every
well,
day.
I was during 9/11. I was on duty that day. Again, and where we're located, you don't just abandon your, area and just go on your own. You have to get assigned. So it was
Right.
later that afternoon. But I went in that morning. Watched everything on TV. I was listening to the live communications because we were just getting prepared, waiting to get called. Again, that's where I had called home. My wife had called in sick to work that day, and I left a voice message on her work phone. But then I called her at the house, woke her up, and while we were on the phone, the bells went off. She told me later on that I said, goodbye, we're going down there. And my family didn't hear from me for 3 days. Well, what it was is we were going to a fire. We had a little fire in our area. But between then, everything just went crazy. And communications were down. So I went down there the night of, or the afternoon of 9/11. I was there. So 9/11 happened on Tuesday. I left there on Thursday. Or Thursday, like evening, Friday morning. Went to the firehouse, showered up, went home, get some clean clothes. I went to my daughter's school. I told the principal I want my daughter right now. I gave her a big hug and kiss, said, Daddy's okay. And then I just went back to the firehouse. So you were either working in the firehouse or you were working at Ground Zero. That's all you did. And then as it progressed into October, I went on active duty military because my military unit had been calling my house that day because they were activating people. And my wife had told them, I don't know where my husband is right now. And then once in October, they said it was no longer a rescue, it was a recovery. I just changed uniforms. I went back down there and I was part of the security, and I was there for almost 30 days. We would shuttle through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. It's that tunnel underneath the water. That's the tunnel that Steven Siller ran through. And on the other side, on the Brooklyn side, is an Army fort, Fort Hamilton. So we lived in Fort Hamilton, and we just went over there, and we did like 15-hour days every day for almost 30 days. So
Talk about Steven Stiller, because some people may not know who that is.
I did not know Steven personally. I mean, that's another thing we always laugh. You run into somebody, hey, so and so. There's a lot of
You know everybody in New York, Bill. Don't you know that?
Every fireman, and I know every pizza place and every Irish pub. Yeah. No. Steven Siller worked in a squad in Brooklyn. A squad is part of the rescue community. So it's an engine company that has a higher level of training. And he was off duty, and he went to his firehouse, where a lot of guys did, because there was a total recall of the New York City Fire Department. It had only been done once before in the 70s during the blackout, which ironically my father was involved with. But he went to his firehouse, he grabbed his gear, and he couldn't drive because everything was locked down. So he ran, and I think it's like 3 point something miles through the tunnel to the Trade Center, and then he was killed in one of the collapses. So he's one of those stories, and his family has turned it into a foundation, which is, doing a lot of work for first responders and veterans. There's a lot of stories. The story of a guy that worked in the Bronx went to a firehouse, not his firehouse, but another firehouse close to the Trade Center. Went inside. We have a universal key, some of the firehouse doors. He grabbed just gear, helmet and boots and stuff, and he left a note with his wallet and keys and said, "Tell my wife and kids I love them," and he died. So there's a lot of stories. Almost of the 343 guys that died that day, I want to say almost a third of them were actually off duty. They didn't have to go. It was the change of tours. Our work shift, we call them a tour. They could have went home, but no, right. they jumped on their respective fire trucks and went down there. So you want to talk about sacrifice? They could have went home or stayed in the firehouse and watched it happen. Okay. So there's a lot of stories. But look what just happened in Baltimore. Things happen. It just happened. It happened here. Excuse me.
Are you talking about the bridge?
Yeah, you talk about disasters and stuff. Poor people. And what I'm hoping, what they saying 6. Hopefully, it's no more than 6. I think they only recovered 2 so far. I can't. I have a hard time watching stuff like that. I don't have flashbacks or anything like that, but I just can't. I watch it enough to be educated, but I can't sit there and focus on that stuff all day. I like watching. I like watching those shows where the guys up in Maine where they rebuild cabins, Cabin Masters. I like that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
watch stuff like that. Or
Yeah.
or I said I never golfed before, and I couldn't see me doing it, but now I watch golf shows. It's good. You watch golf. You take a nap. It makes you fall asleep.
I'm sure when your daughter bought her house, you watched a lot of HD TV too.
Well, I always, I always had tools in my hand. My father was the ultimate like DIY guy, and most firefighters, everybody has a second job. Everybody. I mean, guys have their own companies. It's not because we're workaholics. I mean, very skilled with tools. Firefighters are, and it's just the reality of to live in the suburbs of New York City. You're not making a fireman's salary alone.
Right.
So you had side job. My side job the entire time was the military, and if there was any kind of construction, I did it. I would do roofing, framing, sheetrocking, painting. I had a side job for a while where I was a security guard in a cemetery.
Oh my gosh.
Was that haunted?
At
At night.
night. Well, what it was is like local whatever kids were like going into the cemetery vandalizing it.
Mm.
And I would sit in my car, and then you had this like little like meter or a clock, and you would go around and key it, and you would do like your rounds. Yeah, at night. I did that for like 6 months.
Was it haunted?
Wow.
I mean, what are you going to do to you?
I don't know. Scare you? They
Mm.
jump out at you.
I got a lot of other stuff to worry about. I'm not worried about ghosts.
I knew he was going to say that, so I asked him.
Oh Lord.
I don't
That
know.
is funny.
But no,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, but that's what firefighters do, and we all. And then with that being said, if anybody ever got hurt or anybody ever got sick, they're the first ones there. They're rebuilding each other's homes. They're doing stuff like that. So
Well,
that's even beyond the parameters of the firehouse. That's why it's the community itself is great.
don't you work like 11 days a month, but it's 24-hour shifts?
No, I think actually if you did the math, it would come to actually 9. But we did rotating 24-hour shifts, so you can't do any more than 24 hours. You're not assigned that. You either the way our work chart is, you're assigned to work 2 day tours, then you have a break, and then 2 night tours. A day tour is 9 to 6, a night tour is 6 to 9. But there's always somebody opposite you. Like our manpower is we have 25 firefighters, 3 lieutenants, and 1 captain comprises the company. So there's always another firefighter that's opposite you when you're working the day, he's working the night. So you swap, and then that's how you get a 24. But you can't do more than 24 hours unless you're actively working at a fire or an emergency. And then but you can also work overtime in between, depending on the manning. And then again, I mean, I would do a 24-hour shift, especially after 9/11. I mean, I was a contributor unfortunately, to my divorce. I went from 24 hours in the firehouse and would drive right to the Air Force Base. And I would do a day tour at the Air Force Base, and then sometimes drive right back to the firehouse and work another 24 hours at the firehouse. So it was,
Crazy.
I wore a uniform almost like literally every day for almost 10 years. It was crazy. And it takes its toll on you. It just does, but what do you needed to do? I mean, what are you going to do? Not do it?
That should be your motto, Bill. What are you going to do? Not do it?
Instead of just
Right.
do it.
It's a life of service.
That's it. I mean, I respect anybody who goes to work, takes care of the family, but you do it. And then, everybody's got their bumps and bruises in life. I've had mine, and I've had my pity parties, but, but I also say I refuse to be a victim. I'm not a victim. I mean, I'll always say, I've had what I had, but I know there's somebody right now that's got it worse than me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you've done a lot of work since I've met you. So, you wouldn't even talk to me when I met you.
I didn't know
Plus,
who
you
were.
didn't know why you were there. So that kind of helped your whole atmosphere. You did
Yeah,
not know what you were doing there.
I don't want to say it was a setup, but it was kind of a setup. Like I told you, I got a call from fire department headquarters. There was some group was coming down with military members, and they wanted to do a tour and film at the World Trade Center. So I thought I was, and being part of that veterans group, we get a lot of that. Hey, this group's coming in and stuff. We bring them out to our fire academy and stuff like that, or again, the Trade Center at the time. So I thought I was just going down to be like an escort, or maybe answer.
He's a paid escort.
Well, he kind of was an escort. When we got to the museum.
Yeah, but next thing I know, they're sticking a camera in my face and a mic. Like.
I could just see that. I could just see
that was all
leave me the hell alone.
That didn't have nothing to do with me. I'm just
no, you were just there. No,
I was just there.
No, and I'm like, again, in my head, I'm like, they're asking me these questions. I'm like, I could be an axe murderer. You don't know who I am. I could be, what do you do on your days off? I'm a serial killer, but, I don't. Yeah,
serial killers don't go around saying that they're serial killers, Bill.
That's true.
Yeah, I got this hat at the gas station, and now I'm, telling you.
I got mine in Central Park.
No, well, there you go. But then, there I was, surrounded on all sides. Then you start.
By the grace of God.
Stop. I don't.
Oh my gosh.
It's all good. Yeah, you
That's
gotta
why
watch.
I hang out with this guy, right? He's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm
so, what is your best day as a firefighter?
Best day?
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, I love the job. Even, bad days were great days. If you help somebody, you always, that was the thing too. You always, you we wanted to go to work, but going to work, it was, again, even I think about it now. When you're older or you're removed from it, you think about things. We used to get so excited and want to go to fires, but we're going in there and doing that, and it could be somebody's worst day of their life. But if you help somebody, was great. What I saw some extraordinary things done by human beings that were above and beyond, and I was just a little piece of it, or got to be a witness to it.
Now we need to know what extraordinary things. What would be considered extraordinary to you, sir?
No, just listen. You get any human being that wants to run into a burning building when everybody's running out. That's just something for themselves. I was able to help people like that. And, when people are when somebody's having their worst day, you can go there and help them. And that was always the difference between, unfortunately, that's the difference between firemen and cops too, in the public perception. When you call a fireman, it's usually, you're glad when they show up because they're there to help you. If a police officer's showing up onto your doorstep or whatever, you're usually in a really bad position or you're getting locked up. And not everybody, and that's the unfortunate part of that. That's where police, can become very jaded or pessimistic. But no, we, I just, I enjoyed it. When you were, and it's. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. Like I don't go skydiving or stuff like that. I don't do any of that stuff. But you go from, you're dead asleep. Sedentary at night till the bells go off, you slide down the pole, you jump on the truck, and you're going at a heart rate of a professional athlete in the blink of an eye. And and we even use the terminology when you went to a bad fire, we call it a good job. You're like, man, that was a good job. That's just even how that's the terms we use. And, you like it. If you walked into a firehouse in the morning. Or when you came into a firehouse and start the tour, you could just smell it if they went to a fire. If they're at a job, you're like, oh, you guys catch a job, and the guys are sitting around the kitchen. I said that's the funny stuff too, because you come back from a fire and you go back into the kitchen and you usually sit down and you discuss the fire. There's either a blackboard or a dry erase board because it's a learning thing too. But again, they're telling fire stories, stuff like that. You can see the young guys getting really excited, and then as you get older, and you're like, relax. And again, when you're in that environment, like one thing I always stuck with me was when you're in a fire and you go into an apartment. Again, it's a completely blacked out situation. So as you get down on your hands and knees because of the heat, and you always find a wall. A wall is your safety. Because when you leave that wall, you lose. You don't know where you are. And you find the wall and you work your way around the room and you train on the type of buildings. But no two buildings are ever the same or the contents of the apartment. But after the fire is over and you go back in there, that room, you thought that room was 100 by 100 and it could have been 5 by 5. It's amazing, the perception. And you see your hand marks on the wall and where you were. I mean, I got more funny stories. I mean, one of my first fires, I'm crawling on my hands and knees. I find a room. I go in. Boom, I stick my hand down. I stuck it in the toilet. I was in the bathroom. I didn't realize I was in the bathroom. But that's, because you can't see your hand in front of your face. Or I remember I was on a fire escape one time and then they had the gates. Because, a lot of it, problem is these doors, the gates, people being locked in, and everything is about speed. You got to get in there to get them out. And I'm working on the gate and the gate's flexing just enough with my tool. And I took my foot and I kicked it. And this is, again, when we had rubber boots. My foot went through the gate. And when I pulled it out, my foot came out of my boot. So my boot is in the apartment. And I'm standing on the fire escape with one foot in my bare sock. And I'm like yelling in, can somebody give me my boot back? There's glass, burning embers, and I'm standing there in my stocking feet, on the fire escape without my boots. But those are the stories you talk about. I remember I said I'm wearing my military uniform. When you come into the firehouse, we always try to come in early. You want to come in at least an hour, maybe, or at least an hour and a half early. Let somebody go, because again, they're either going home, especially in the morning, they're going home to a second job or they're going to be Mr. Mom. Their wives are going to work and they got the kids. So if you walk in and the bells go off, you jump in your boots. Well, I'm in my military uniform. I jump into my equipment now and I'm driving. Pull up, there's a fire, so I'm operating a ladder. I'm wearing a helmet, a radio, and an Air Force camouflage uniform standing on the pedestal of the fire truck. And the chief was like, what the heck are you wearing? So, being a wise guy, I'm like, Chief, they declared martial law. I'm in charge. And he's like, get your gear on. Told me a couple choice words. And
Oh, I love that, Bill. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Absolutely love your journey in your boots. I mean, they've been all over the world, from Navy to Air Force to police officer to fire in the fire department. And we just thank you for your service.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. And for this being your first time on a podcast, sir, you've done absolutely amazing. Although I like to call this a live show, not a podcast. It eventually goes on the podcast, but you're also on Roku TVs too as well. Give us a week or two, we'll have you up there. For all of you that are tuning in, thank you for joining us tonight and listening to Bill's amazing story of his journey in his boots. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, share with your friends. This is truly a network of positivity and helping people overcome from trauma to triumph and everything in between. So we just thank you for being here. Thank you, Bill, again, like I said, for joining us tonight and sharing your incredible story. We appreciate you, sir.
If you need to get a hold of Bill, you're going to have to get a hold of Dorothy because Bill does not do social media.
Yes, I had to laugh when you sent me the email and said, Bill has no social media. I have two goals in life. Well, one of them, I have never used an emoji. And I'm trying
He has a yahoo.com email. Like,
oh yeah.
Bill is not about that life.
I've never used an emoji in my life. Social
Well,
media.
And Bill, just so we're understood, I never give anybody's cell phone or phone out unless I have permission. So if people want to get a hold of you through me, that's fine. But just know that I will reach out to Bill first to make sure that I can give that out. I don't
Absolutely.
give everybody's.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I don't know. I don't
Except
think
for I
about
put it on OnlyFans. Sorry, Bill.
No, that's okay.
You don't even know what that is. See how great he is?
Oh
just
my
gotta
God, Bill.
Just fake your way through it. Yeah, sure, whatever. Listen,
See,
I got
okay,
I have a friend of
OnlyFans calendar is coming. We got to do it. We got to do it with
I
our
have friends.
veterans
I
and
have
our
friends
first
who
responder.
I have a friend of mine that calls it the interweb. That's how he says the interweb. I'm like, yeah, you got that interweb thing going on? Nope. I do have a real phone, but I don't have a flip phone. See, I have a real phone.
Oh, there
Finally.
you go.
Yeah, we had to upgrade him.
Yeah, that's right.
All
right,
well,
ladies.
again, thank you so much.
Thank
And tune in next week. I'm not sure who we're having, but I know Dr. Royster has a phenomenal guest
I got
scheduled.
all kinds of goodies in store. It's coming.
And oh wait, yeah, because after next week I'll be in Florida, so you have no idea what we're gonna cook up in Florida.
That's
So,
right.
all right, guys, see you next week, and be unstoppable in all that you do, and can't wait to hear your story. Bye for now.
All right.